Welcome to today's webinar, Smith's Global Changemakers and Entrepreneurs Making an Impact Through Vision and Grit. My name is Lindsay McGrath, and I'm the Communications and Events Specialist for the Office of Alumni and Donor Relations at Smith College. I'm just going to do a few housekeeping notes, and then I'll turn it over to my colleagues for our program today. And I mentioned this just a moment ago, but we'd love to see where you're joining us from. So if you could type in the chat with your class year, and if you feel comfortable sharing with everyone, select to all panelists and attendees. We are recording the webinar today, and it will soon be made available on the Smith College YouTube channel. Everyone who has joined today is muted with no video to limit background noise and distraction. But we would love for you to participate in the webinar by making comments and asking questions, and we encourage you to do so using the Q&A box or sharing in the chat. We're going to start with some introductions, and then our panelists will have a discussion, and following that, we'll have time for questions and answers with the panelists. So with that, I would like to introduce my colleague, Jackie DeFelice, the Director of International Advancement here at Smith. Thanks, Jackie.
Everybody, I'm delighted to welcome you all to our discussion this morning. Thank you, Lindsay, for getting us going on this and helping us with all of the logistical stuff this morning. It's a very chilly morning here in Northampton. It's about 7 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're happy to be indoors and warm. And I know that you're all experiencing, different weather all over the world. We're actually being joined this morning by an audience that includes 28 alums from 28 countries across more than 28 countries across Asia, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, North and South America. Our audience represent graduates of every decade since the 1950s through to today. And we're also joined by students in Smith's current undergraduate classes and faculty and staff from all across campus. The diversity of our gathering today speaks volumes not only about the interest in the topic that we're discussing today, changemakers and entrepreneurs, but also about the connections that you have to Smith and that you have to one another. So it's now my pleasure to introduce our panelists, who all graduated from Smith in a 5-year span, and starting with our most recent graduate. Welcome Rubaiyat Hussain, class of 02. Rubaiyat is one of Bangladesh's handful of female filmmakers, known for her critically acclaimed works, drawing global attention to how women exist and negotiate within patriarchal power structures. Rubaiyat has written, directed, and produced 3 feature-length films, most recently Made in Bangladesh in 2019. Rubaiyat is the winner of the Bangladesh National Film Award for Best Dialogue. And currently Rubaiyat is living between Bangladesh and the US, and today is speaking to us from Northampton, very close to campus. So again, welcome Rubaiyat. Sara Bilal, class of 01, is the founder and executive director of Justice Project Pakistan, a nonprofit organization based in Lahore that represents the most vulnerable Pakistani prisoners facing the harshest punishments at home and abroad. In recognition of their work, Justice Project Pakistan was awarded the first ever 2016 Franco-German Human Rights Prize, granted to only 16 human rights activists throughout the world. Congratulations and welcome, Sarah. Maliha Kadir, class of 2000, is the founding managing director of Shahood, the largest super app of Bangladesh, offering a wide range of services, including food delivery, ride-hailing, tickets, health, and logistics services. Shahood serves more than 5 million users and has more than 350 employees currently. Maliha has received recognition for being in the top 100 global female founders by UK Business Insider magazine. Welcome, Maliha. Shazia Khan, class of 98. Shazia is an environmental lawyer and an expert in off-grid clean energy solutions. She co-founded Eco Energy in 2009 to ensure that rural communities around the world have greater access to clean sources of energy. In 2016, Shazia was a delegate at the Global Entrepreneurship Summit hosted by US President Barack Obama, which showcased 600 inspiring entrepreneurs addressing some of the most intractable global challenges. Welcome, Shazia. We're honored to have you all with us today. I now turn to my colleague, Baishakhi Taylor, Dean of the College and Vice President for Campus Life. Baishakhi serves as a member of President McCartney's cabinet and oversees a variety of offices that work collaboratively to ensure students are successful during their time at Smith. Baishakhi will moderate our conversation today. Thank you, Baishakhi, and welcome all.
Thank you, Jackie. And again, warm welcome to all our panelists. My name is Baishakhi Taylor, and I had this wonderful opportunity to join Smith College this past July. So I'm relatively new, and this is such a treat and a privilege to be able to moderate this conversation this morning. And welcome to all the attendees who are here. Thank you for joining us from all across the world and across the country. Again, I am just so delighted to be here with all of you. This panel I can best describe by borrowing from our Youth Poet Laureate Amanda Gorman, that this is a half panel and more a concert of ideas, inspiration, and progress. In the opening of the Girl Boss conference last year, Gorman said that life is a pitch and there will be more than one glitch. The only direction that matters is the one that shatters your own expectations. I hope you find imagination and inspiration from our panelist experience, from their work and from their wisdom, as I have from them in my previous conversations. So we'll get started. Earlier I was saying that just to get us started, we'll go alphabetically. And I want to get us started by asking each of you to share your story about, how did you get into the work that you're doing now? Maybe you can talk about roles Smith played into it. And then what keeps you motivated and helps you to do this work? So I will turn it over to Malia to get us started.
Thank you, Baishakhi. Thank you, Jackie and everyone. Very nice to be here and very nice to connect back with Smith alum. So after Smith, I worked in Wall Street in finance. Then I did my MBA at Harvard, after which I moved to tech. And I moved to Singapore. I worked for Nokia. And then I worked for a startup called Vistaprint. It's an American company. It was trying to move into Asia. I worked there. So, there was always an aspiration that I wanted to come back to Bangladesh. It was partly my parents, partly myself that, we'll come back, we'll learn all the good things there is and come back and do something in Bangladesh. So that aspiration was there, plus my work in tech. I believed that tech could really transform my country. So from that perspective, I wanted to do what I have myself used in the US, in Singapore, in various kind of tech portals, whatever was starting around then in 2014. So from that aspiration, I wanted to make people's life easy. And, having grown up in a family where my mom worked, my mom loved a magazine, Real Simple. It's an American magazine. And it was about simplifying life. So having seen my mom, balance family and, she's a superwoman. I loved Real Simple. So I loved simplifying life and tech, simplifying life, all that kind of comes together. Tech is something that helps you simplify life. So from that idea, I started my startup, which is called Shahood. Shahood means easy in Bengali. And the dream is to really make life easy for the masses of Bangladesh, which is why we started with mass level services. We started with bus tickets. We work with bus operators. That's probably the most male dominated industry in Bangladesh. I don't think any woman has ever stepped foot in a bus counter before I did. They told me we've never seen women come and talk to us business. So we started with the bus, and I wanted to do that because it's really a mass transportation in Bangladesh is bus. And then we added ride hailing, food delivery, and now we do truck booking as well. Truck is another such area, probably even worse than bus in that sense. But it's been a really rewarding journey. I've worked at Shahood for 5 years. Shahood is 5 years old. We have gone through multiple rounds of funding, which is what startups do, bringing international capital. And we have got a very good user base now, a good brand and reputation. Smith's role in this, Smith was transformational for me. Even though I grew up in a family where my mom used to work and she had, very good voice in the family and decision making and all, it's still very much a male dominated society. So going to Smith, I was shy. I was very shy before. I don't think I'm shy anymore, but I used to be shy. And Smith really helped me a lot in overcoming my shyness. Rubayat was mentioning how I was the chair of ECTA, sent emails and whatever, reaching out to her. I was just thinking back on those days. The leadership opportunities I got at Smith, I don't think I would have had the courage in a different environment to do those. So seeing that, and Smith also very importantly taught me that how important making a difference is. I don't think I had thought of things that way. I knew I wanted to do something big, but that the essence of what you want to do big is really making a difference, leaving a legacy. I learned that at Smith. So seeing women lead things, seeing women, have big dreams, being vocal and all, that was really a transformational journey for me. And most importantly, making a difference. So to me, making a difference became, starting something on my own, and for Bangladesh.
Thank you, Malia. That was really incredible to hear. And I'll turn it over to Rubayat now.
Hello. Well, first of all, it's such a pleasure to be here, even though it's virtual, and hearing Maliha speak and thinking about the time when I first came to Smith. And I'm as inspired by Smith today as I was in 1998. So it's a real pleasure being here. I am a writer, producer, and director. I make feature films and I also produce. I have an organization in Bangladesh called Khana Talkies, and we produce films, and we also do work in raising awareness about gender in cinema and trying to create opportunities for more women directors in Bangladesh, because the number is very, very low. Like in the history of Bangladesh, there's probably like 12 women directors, and most of them were actors who later turned into directors, making just one film. And even globally, that, if you look at the film industry, the numbers are really, really imbalanced. If you look at the history of cinema, and how many male directors there were versus how many women directors, it's very apparent that from the beginning of cinema, women's stories have been told by male directors. So when I came into cinema, this was very much like I wanted to make a feminist intervention in cinema. And I feel that the fact that I came to Smith is, I feel like it's God's work, because I was very much aware of gender and inequality since I was very young. Because when I was 4, my sister was born, and I knew back then that a male child is more desired. So I was aware of this ever since I was 4 years old. And then growing up, I read some feminist texts, even when I was like as young as 12. And when I applied to Smith, I did not know what it would bring to me. But then coming to Smith and, meeting actually Gloria Steinem, or like Mali has said, to see that it's possible to be leaders. Everybody at Smith told me that, yes, you can do it. Yes, you can do it. And I was like, oh, nobody ever said that to me before. And even before I came to Smith over the summer, I had email from Zareen Mahmood, who was her class president, and I had email from Maliha, who was the president of ECTA. So even before I came to Smith, I was like, oh, these women are in these leadership roles, and I can be that too. So I aspired for that. And I came to Smith with the intention of studying computer science and economics. My family wanted me to do that. And then I did that for one semester. And I remember my first, there was a big sort of, every department had their stall. in the gym, and we were going around, and I walked up to women's studies and I approached Susan Brandine, and she said, no, that class is going to happen in the spring. We give you a little bit of time to adjust before we give you the class. It's not offered in the fall. So I did my women's studies 150 in the spring, and there was no looking back, because I was like, this is what I was trying to say all my life, but I did not have the language or the tools to articulate, or I had all this frustration and anger, but I did not know what to do with it. And I think Smith gave me the tool to do something about it. And, I had this artistic, aspiration that I wanted to do something creative. And it was a difficult job coming into cinema because my family really did not want this. And it's not a profession which is, you don't know if you're going to make it or not. You could be working a lot and then not get anywhere. But I've been at it, and I have made 3 feature films, and my last film was distributed globally. And what I'm trying to do right now is design a mentorship program for women directors in collaboration with festivals like Cannes and Berlinale and Locarno, where we would offer this module to young women about how to develop an idea and then to make the film, and also the business part of it, because when you make films, you also have to negotiate your rights as a producer. And your film could be doing great in the box office, but as a filmmaker, you might see nothing. So I think it's also important for women to learn how to do that part of the business in filmmaking. So that's what I'm trying to do to, share the knowledge that I've had from my own journey. And also, when I started making films in Bangladesh, I was the only woman in my crew, and I was questioned by everybody. This was my first film. So I decided to get more women in the crew. So by Made in Bangladesh, most of my head of departments were women. That's also something I've learned from Smith, is diversity is a strength and solidarity is a strength. And yeah, I live between Northampton and Bangladesh. So I'm still very much on campus. And I just like to finish by saying one thing, that I'd probably never be a filmmaker if I didn't go to Smith, because I remember I would get these videos of Satyajit Ray from Nielsen and watch it in my dorm. And some ADAs would watch it with me. And after one of the films, one day I remember I was in the hallway of Northrop House, and I was like, I don't know, I wonder if I could ever make films. And she was like, of course you can. And I still remember that moment, standing in that hallway. I was like, oh, can I? And I don't think it would have happened if I didn't go to Smith. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm looking forward to hearing more about how this amazing mentorship program continues to grow. And what a great story about having, female crew. And I think I'm going to write it down, that the strength is in diversity, but also in solidarity. I think we should all remember that. So since we are going alphabetically, I will now turn to Sarah.
Hi. Sorry, I'm clearly the technically challenged, technology challenged person on the panel. So I'm Sarah Bilal, and I am class of 01. And I live in Pakistan, and I run a nonprofit called Justice Project Pakistan. And we defend prisoners facing the death penalty. We've been around I've been doing this work for 12 years, I guess. This is our 11th year. And how did Smith prepare me for this? So it's becoming a lawyer was a very strange path as far as my family was concerned. I come from a family of staunch capitalists. And my father also, I think, thought that I would go to Wharton or one of those obnoxious schools and learn business. And then I negotiated with him. Well, I sabotaged my application to Penn. I think I wrote them something very obnoxious, like my only goal to join Wharton is to find a rich husband. And I never got a call back. My father was so upset. He was like, how could it be? You're the perfect fit. I was like, yep, I know. But I didn't even know about Smith. I was raised by my mother to go to Wellesley. And I went to a boarding school that was like right next to Wellesley as well. And then when I was applying for colleges, my aunt said, hey, you should check out this one called Smith. And I thought, yeah, okay, sure. I mean, I'm spent my life trying to get into Wellesley. So, and I had a horrible experience with my Wellesley interview. You know, it was a cloudy day, it was raining. The girl that was taking us around was very obnoxious and mean. And then in my interview, they only asked me about Benazir Bhutto, who happened to be the prime minister at that time of Pakistan. And they had all of these assumptions about like how I was some kind of repressed. And I didn't pick up on it because I until a while later where I understood that they were just really not interested in any kind of diversity. And I was just a box to them. And the next day, and I started crying in my interview because I was so disappointed and I didn't know what to do in that moment. And the next day, I go to this place called Smith, and I will never forget it. It was a gorgeous sunny day. The girl that led us around was the nicest, most normal, most wonderful woman. The other kids on the tour also were just lovely. My interview was one of the most life-affirming experiences. They genuinely cared about me and asked about me as an individual and not what I look like and any assumptions about who I was. And I absolutely fell in love with it. So I really think that the universe or something really did me a solid by showing me Smith. What did it feel like being there? I was thinking about it while Rubaiyat and you were talking, and I think my 4 years there felt to me like I could breathe again. And it wasn't like I came from a very repressed background. I came from a very privileged background in Pakistan, and that actually frees you from a lot of the rest of the stuff that women in Pakistan have to put up with. But you just always feel like an outsider. My mother always raised me to be an equal. I was treated like that by my dad as well, because my mother made sure my dad treated me like that. But it wasn't until I got to Smith that I felt like I could just breathe and be. And I think that was so important in my life. And that feeling of what a world looks like or what life looks like when women are treated equally, in just like, we're not second class in any way, shape or form. I think that feeling never left me. It was like this utopia, but it's important for you to experience utopia because then you can fight harder for what reality should look like. And I think that's really been something that's stayed with me very strongly, no matter what situation I find myself in or wherever in the world, in Pakistan or in whichever situation. I know what it feels like and to operate in a society or in a community where you are respected and equal. And I think it makes me more attuned when you're not being treated that way, and to fight to get there again. And I've been blessed with 2 daughters. And, I think it's critical that even though they don't live in a place where that's equal, they wouldn't anywhere in the world. But I think it's really important that because I've lived it, that I impart that feeling to them so that when they go out into the world and hopefully to Smith, that they will, that they can strive for that too. I think it informs everything that we do and what we believe about ourselves and how we relate to the world and what we ask for and what we don't ask for. So yeah, no, I look forward to talking more about, I'm sorry, I got really emotional talking about this, but I look forward to talking more about other stuff.
Thank you so much. That truly, your experience at Smith truly lifts us up to and gives me faith in the work we all do at the college every day. So thank you for sharing that. And then I will turn it to Shazia to hear about her work and her journey to where she is right now.
Hi guys, thank you for having me and for putting this together. And for listening. My name is Shazia Khan. I am class of 1998. I founded first a nonprofit and then several companies. The nonprofit is called Eco Energy. From my time at Smith, after my time at Smith, I went into environmental law. Energy was my area of specialization. And I started my career at the World Bank. I worked in the Africa energy sector and in the global environment facility there. And I've had this passion for somewhere at the intersection between environmental justice and bringing energy access to the 1.4 billion people in the world that don't have it, and fighting climate change. I really, truly believe that you can give people the tools that they need for economic development and prosperity. And you can do that in a way that's conducive to a friendly environment. We just have to be creative about it. I was born and raised in the US, but like many first generation Americans, I traveled to Pakistan quite often as a child. My mom was very attached, had a difficult time, struggled a lot as an immigrant, as many immigrants who came here in the late 60s and early 70s did. And so my dad promised her that she could visit Pakistan and take us as often as she wanted to. So I learned to speak Urdu fluently. I visited from the time that I was 2, 4, 6, 8, and I'm almost 44 now. So I traveled to Pakistan enough that I really was moved. And I don't want to say, I don't want to be unfair, but the poverty that I witnessed as a child was so traumatic that it haunted me for the rest of my life. And it really still does. And it really made me not look lightly upon the privilege with which I had been bestowed. Being born and raised in the US and having a family that was incredibly supportive and saw no limits to what I could achieve, what I could do, giving me a Smith education. And so I decided to do something about it. I started by working in the international development sector, and I got frustrated with that experience. It felt like it's a cool place to work. It's like a Eurotrash fashion show. Everybody looks great and everybody's pushing papers, and that's not me. I wanted to actually do something. Every time I went to Pakistan and I went into a village and I see that, it doesn't make sense for a population of 220 million people that 65 million people have zero electricity. How can we take that for granted? And there needed to be a solution. So I've pretty much dedicated the last 20 years of my life since I've left Smith to this one trajectory, to this path. How do I make clean energy affordable and accessible to people who are off grid or under electrified? And in the case of Pakistan and many other countries in the world, that's a lot of people. And there is a clean energy solution for them. So I've been working in the field of solar. I started with a nonprofit, but the purpose of the nonprofit was to build a business case for affordable solar energy solutions. And so we use the nonprofit to raise funding to go and do the market research to understand the purchasing power and the consumer preferences of low-income people living in off-grid areas. But we expanded over the years to a for-profit company that includes everybody who's under electrified. And if you follow the news, just about 2 weeks ago, and my fellow Pakistanis know this, the entire country was plummeted into darkness for 9 hours. The entire national grid went down because that's how unreliable it is. The World Bank ranks Pakistan out of 135 countries in terms of reliable energy access. Pakistan ranks 117th, which is really bad. So I've been working on having the eco energy umbrella include a lot more people. We target rural low-income customers, middle-income customers, commercial and industrial customers, farmers, factory owners, small businesses. And then we also are now working in the urban areas. So we do urban residential installations, and we also do commercial and industrial installations. But basically we're kind of sitting between the richy rich 1%ers and like the megawatt scale energy projects, and then the very low income people. So we're still reaching low income people, but we're also reaching everybody else. And in that, and in the span of the last 5 years, we've developed 3 additional technologies, everywhere from a microgrid, a peer-to-peer energy sharing platform, which allows it has both rural and urban applications. So say you have some roof space and you own an apartment building in Karachi. Well, we can put a system on your roof. We can connect everybody with a meter, and we can give them power on demand. All of the metered customers for $6 can on demand buy power that's cheaper than the national grid. And they could do it on demand. And this is a revenue stream for the person that owns the asset, that owns the building, but it's also a much cheaper way for us to access people that wouldn't have. So it's about how do you use technology? How do you take these platforms? How do you take the gig economy? And instead of just figuring out a way to democratize rides or everybody can get food, this is a way for us to take it, something that's traditionally been a private sector or government utility, and how do we make it cheaper and more accessible for everyone? So this is what drives me. It's really exciting. We're doing everything from the microgrid to the small scale distributed solutions, all the way to an EV charging. We're going to be powering not these fancy electric cars, but we're going to be powering rickshaws and motorcycles, of which there's 17 million. And we are expanding beyond Pakistan because these are technologies that we've licensed, that we can license to other countries in the world so that they can also go on to change the circumstances for the people at the bottom of the poor, as well as middle and upper income people. So how did my time at Smith really act as a catalyst to this? Well, it was very transformational, as many of the other panelists have said, because at Smith, you're really given the kind of agency to be like, I'm a problem solver. That's who I am. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. That's who I am. And there's no reason why these idiots sitting anywhere in the world can solve a problem, why I can't take these same tools, the same access to capital, this same energy, and I can't solve a much bigger and much more pressing and urgent and important problem. Why wouldn't I take all the privilege, my voice, my energy, and why wouldn't I put it towards something that's going to be my legacy in the world? This is going to be my legacy to the world. This is going to be my legacy to my kids. And Smith gave me sort of like I was always very confident, but it really gave me this attitude of like, well, if other people are out there solving much stupider problems, why can't I solve a problem that I know is super, super important? And I will now end there.
That's just incredible. Like truly, just be able to start the day with hearing your stories of both courage, but also inclusion and access in so many different fields. So wonderful. So I guess I'll ask the next question I have, but maybe we can go in reverse alphabetical order just to mix it up. So Shazia, I'll start off with you asking, what advice do you have for many who are here, but others, members of the community who will probably watch this recording? What advice do you have for somebody who wants to start out as an entrepreneur?
Well, first of all, it's been the most exciting, fulfilling career. It's pushed me. It's really challenged me, forced me to grow. It's exciting. The problems are always different that we're solving. But as long as you have one guiding star, something that you're truly passionate about, what is something that you care about? What is something that if you put everything else aside, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind to the world? And it doesn't have to be something as grandiose as solving the energy access problem for the world. Whatever it is that motivates you, that generates this surge of emotion and passion in you, work really hard on getting as many influences as you can, talking to people that you might be interested in the field that they're working with. Really get out there. Don't be afraid to go and connect with people that you think wouldn't give you the time of day, because chances are that they are excited and they see themselves in you, and they're more than happy to talk to you about their journeys and give you the connections that you need to get out there and take your next step. So don't be afraid, think big, but also make sure that if you are motivated to solve a problem, that it's a problem that actually exists. You have to go and test that assumption. You can't just assume from an ivory tower that you're solving a problem that needs to be solved. You need to go out and talk to the people that would be your user base or your customer base and really understand what are their preferences, what they can afford, and what will make a compelling value proposition for them. Really include the user or the beneficiary, whether you have a nonprofit or a for-profit, it really doesn't matter as an entrepreneur. Like, you are just really need to understand who are you trying to reach, and your beneficiary, go at them with a sort of humility that they deserve, and really try to understand where they're coming from and what their actual problem is, and do you have a value add? And if you do, you isolate that. And then, I mean, it's taken me 20 years I've been working on the same problem for 20 years. I'm still not tired. I told the panelists before you guys got here, I started my day at 4:30 this morning. I typically start my calls at 5 a.m. because my team of almost 100 people sits on the other side of the world, as do many of my investors and board members. But every day when I wake up, I'm excited. I really like my team. I feel so much joy in what I'm doing. I feel so inspired, and I feel so grateful to be able to work on something that's so important and that I really care about. So try to isolate and identify what really moves you. And then the money will come. You just figure out what you really care about, and that will push you forward day after day after day. And then you can figure out a way to monetize it, and I'll help you.
Thank you. Sarah, we cannot hear you. Sorry.
Sorry. So I said, I'm mad at Shazia because she said what I was going to say, and she said it so beautifully. That's exactly it. I was completely lost when I came back, even after I went to law school. And then I came back to Pakistan. I went to law school. Sorry, I realized I didn't talk about that because I had moved to Pakistan in between. And the level of injustice and it was just something that I found it very, 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 and Shazia used the right word, traumatic. And I didn't have a skill. I would suck at math and I wasn't going to be a doctor. I can't. So I really wanted to learn a profession that gave me some kind of skill. And so that's how I ended up going to law school pretty late. But law school was an interesting experience because I didn't find many people, actually anybody, who was there to do what I wanted to do. And so, anyway, I graduated, and when I got back, it was the same thing. I felt really lost. And the way I found what I do now is, I was in between jobs again, and I was looking for a job in the paper, and I saw a letter by a prisoner on death row who was going to be executed in a week. And I was just a year out of law school, a year and a half, and I didn't know what to do with that. And I thought, oh, isn't that terrible? And then I just, went and took a shower, but I couldn't get that out of my head. And I ended up calling the paper and saying, I don't know, has anyone else called? And they were like, no, you're the first lawyer to call. And basically the person's brother turned up at my doorstep within like an hour. And I had no qualifications for a capital case, but I ended up taking that case to every boss I'd ever had and trying to convince them to do it. And they all turned around and said, don't start your career with unwinnable cases. And, there's nothing that can be done. And you're going to ruin your professional reputation if you take unwinnable cases. And I just remember thinking, I don't have a job. What professional reputation are you talking about? And also, how could you live with yourself? Not try, who cares if you win or not, but how could you live with yourself? Having a skill and not using it to at least try when someone's life is on the line. And that's how I kind of got into this work. And Shazia is absolutely right. The minute I went to prison, the first time ever, it was my first prison ever. And I'll never forget it. I'd never seen the death row or the inside of a prison, and I just couldn't believe it. And I remember being overwhelmed, and I met my client, and I didn't even care. They weren't at that time used to that many women lawyers coming into the prison and stuff. But there was this moment where I went to catch my breath, and I'll never forget it. I remember thinking, I can go home. No one can be expected to solve something like this. That's just the scale of it. There were just hundreds of people on death row. And there's no way. And I was like, I can just go home and get on with my life. But I then remember very clearly something inside me saying, my life is never going to be the same. Even if I walk out, I have no idea how I'm going to fix this, but for the rest of my life, I'm going to be thinking that I turned my back on something, and that's not going to give me any peace. And then I realized this is what I was going to do. That's it. And I went back in, and that was that's been my life for 10 years. But she's absolutely right. I still love what I do. I love it. I just came back from work right now. And there are a couple of things that keep that interest. So I feel very strongly about what it is that I do and who I'm trying to help. The community of our team, which is a family, It's a family that grows and changes and evolves. But that has meant a lot in terms of surviving in this work and thriving in this work. You can't do it alone. And we very much operate almost, somebody said to me, like a cult, which I wasn't happy about. But that's just the level of commitment and understanding and camaraderie that we have with each other. The other thing is it's exciting and it's challenging. There is trauma associated with it when someone dies. But then if you can bring yourself to come back, take care of yourself, come back to the work, and then you actually help somebody come out of prison or save a life, there's no other feeling like it in the world. So my advice to people trying to get into work is exactly what Shazia said. It has to be something that moves you or bothers you enough that makes you get off your butt and actually, do something about it. I think that might be hard for people who are just generally empathetic, and I was, but you'll know when it's something that just, it's something that'll bother you to the point that you need to just go out and fix it. And that drive or that connection to that work is usually what helps you actually solve some of the most very complicated problems that arise. Because you're not you don't bow down or give up when you mess up or when you don't do it right or when you figure it out or you lose or whatever. And so that kind of builds that resilience, to survive in this kind of work. So I couldn't wish anybody anything more than may you find your calling in life. I really do believe every one of us has that. And I really hope that you find that too.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll turn to Rubaiyat now. If you have advice on somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur in the world of films.
I think that, if you had made it to Smith and you spent 4 years being educated and pampered by all the professors, then you're more privileged than many other women in the world. So if you want to do something, you're probably more equipped to do it than many other women. And for me, when I wanted to make films, it was really an impossible desire because I actually didn't even have a degree in cinema. I studied women's studies, and then after Smith, I'd gone to Penn and done a master's in South Asia studies. And ever since I came to Smith, I was going back to Bangladesh every summer. I was working with women's rights organization. So being a women's rights activist was also a very big part of my life. And I might have gone to work in development. That was a very, kind of short trajectory. I was also teaching. But cinema was kind of this bug that I had. I did it against all of my better judgment, to be quite honest, and my family's too. But I really, really wanted it because I felt that it had a lot of power. At least it had a lot of power on me, power of communication. And I wanted to do something about how the women's position in society, I want to do something to change that. And I felt that cinema is such a great tool of communication. And my first film, the way I financed my first film is a funny story because I was getting married, and in South Asian, parents do spend a substantial amount of money, the daughter's children's wedding. And I got married in a bookshop in London, spending like £200. We took the money that we were supposed to use. And then I made, I'd married my partner by then and made our first feature. But after that, I'd learned to raise money with my writing. For my last film, I raised a really good finance from Europe. Most of my financing now come from Europe because in America, there's really no public money for cinema, but a lot of public money in Europe for cinema. So I think everybody has to find out how they fit in. You might get work with studio. For me, it's been with the European grants, and I've been able to raise a sustainable structure for myself where I move from one film to the other. For me, it's in a way, it's freeing to think that I can have a concept and I can build on it and I can raise the money, I can make the film. And it's a 4-year journey, but it also takes a lot out of me. And one of the things we were talking about before the start of the panel with Baishakhi is how do you take care of yourself? And for me, because of the nature of my job is so competitive, and it's like, if you don't have a new idea, if you're not on top there's another filmmaker and it could just disappear, you know? Every festival, every year, there's going to be new ideas, new filmmakers. How do you keep yourself afloat? So I really try to also detach myself, my identity from my profession, that I am not a filmmaker, but it is my job. And I try to build meditation and spiritual practice into my life where I'm also okay if I'm not at the top festival next, because I felt that that kind of burnt away my life, you know. And living in Northampton and being in nature, I'm kind of detached from everything in a way. So it's good. It's been a retreat for me, and my profession and the festivals and the atmosphere there is could really, you know, make oneself quite crazy. And I've been there, so that's my advice. That whatever you do, you have a place inside to retreat back.
Thank you so much. Mali, I will end this question with you.
Everyone spoke so well. I would echo firstly, like everyone's saying, it is very important to find your passion. Do not run after money. I worked in investment banking. I went to HBS. I started my tech startup, but I tell my employees, I tell people that I am not doing this for money. Money can follow. That's fine. You know, you need money in life. It will follow, but you really have to do something that you feel very passionate about. Because no matter what you do in life, no matter what you do in life, to do well in anything, you really have to give a lot of your soul into it. It you know, really like takes up a lot from you, and you can't do it if you're doing this for money. Nobody can love money that much. You have to do it because you want to make a difference. For me, I'm doing it because tech, I think, could change Bangladesh. Tech could really make us grow as a country, and it could really make a big impact in people's life. And that's why I do it. So no matter what you do, be very clear with yourself why you are doing it, and really not should not be money. It really should be something you're passionate about. Have a very clear sense of ethics. I think it's important in everything we do. Everywhere, you know, it's not so straight cut, you know, it's not so black and white. The ethical boundaries you come across in business when you do things, you know, there's a lot of gray area, but you really have to stay very strong, very true, and really like have a very good sense of ethics and what is right, what is wrong. And I think that's very important. People blur the line a lot. I have seen, as I have over the years, as I have met many people, seen many circumstances, I've seen many good people still, like, you know, make decisions that, you know, I don't feel was so strongly ethical, and they don't even understand nowadays. So that, I think, I still think is very, very important. Some practical advice. Two of the best advices I got in my life from people at work was, be flexible in your career planning. You know, I, as being Smithy, I had my 5-year plan, then I had my 10-year plan. I'll do this, la, 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 la. After 10 years, it becomes very tough. You can't really be rigid about your career decisions. And because you have to be able to take opportunities, you know, had I really planned my career the way, you know, I am proceeding now, maybe not exactly the same way, but I'm really happy, like I made the right decisions. So be flexible in where life takes you. It will not be a straight path. It will be many, you know, ups and downs, and many, like, you know, different turns you take in life. But it works out, and you know, go with the flow as well. That's important. It's not a fair world. I know, we all know that. We're all fighting for women's equality and all. But for practical matter, be prepared that you may have to work 3 times harder than the man to get the same reward. You know, we're all fighting for it. We'll keep fighting for it, but be practical that you will have to do that. I have seen women at work come and ask for advantages, you know, because they're women. Oh, you are a woman, you understand, I have kids, I have to go home at 4 o'clock. Of course, you know, the man can also come and tell me that, and I'll treat them both equally. So if we are asking for equal rights, we should also be prepared to put in the equal number of hours for work being done. Of course, you know, men or women, you know, if you have family problems, it's a different thing. But don't expect that you will get extra benefits just because you're a woman, even if you have a women boss or whatever. You have to put in your hours, you have to pay your dues, and you may have to work harder to get the same rewards. That's practical. That's practicality. We have to be practical there. And my last thing would be find the right partner. You know, if you decide to stay alone, that's fine. If you choose to be with somebody, it is so important for men and women equally. Having the right life partner who understands you, particularly as it relates to career, because we're talking about career here, is very important. I have been very lucky. My husband is extremely supportive of my entrepreneurial visions, me going and meeting bus companies, truck drivers at like 11 at night. He's very supportive, and my father is also very supportive. But I know not everybody's families are. But it is really important, at least in your partner, to be able to find somebody who will understand you. And yeah, to end again, don't go after money, go after your passion, and have a very strong sense of ethics and what is right and wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. I know, and I'm also realizing that an hour is just not enough for this kind of incredible conversation. We didn't even get to Q&A, and we barely have a few minutes left. So, and thank you, all of you, for answering the questions in the Q&A box. So I guess, Rubaiyat, you mentioned this. I would love to hear before we close. You mentioned partners, you mentioned families, and taking care of yourself. So in no particular order, if you want to share with us, how do you make time for yourself and take care of yourself?
I'm terrible at it. I'm still learning. I'm very, very bad at it. My therapist and I are working very, very hard at it to figure it out. But I don't think we're anywhere. Well, that's not true, actually. I do yoga, and I try to do the days that I get to do at least 20 minutes in the morning before I go to work. Or, it's been really helpful. And I'm married to an exercise. And by the way, if anyone's wondering what this weird, obnoxious thing behind me, I married a life partner that is the exact opposite of me. So he hunts, and but he's also a fitness fanatic. And one of the things that he owns health clubs. And that's one of the things that I learned from him, that exercise really does kind of help alleviate stress. And I find for people who are as neurotic as I am, I find yoga to be, it also helps reprogram your mind and help you breathe. And it can be a pretty intense workout. I also find spending time with my girls, which I find frustrating as well during the workday. But over time, as life has gotten, my work has gotten slightly better or easier because I have a more mature team, or maybe I know what to do more. I've tried to really take that time out to not work on the weekends as much as I don't have to, and actually spend that time with whoever your favorite person is, that they really lift my spirits when, it's not about scheduling, it's just about spending time with them. And at 42, I've just started relearning the piano. And that's really nice to I didn't know it could bring me so much joy, something I hated so much as a child. So.
That's awesome that you're learning piano. That just gives me so much joy hearing it. Shazia, Rubaiyat, and Malia, is there anything you would like us to know or share your wisdom on how you take care of yourself and make time?
Yeah, I'll go. Okay, I have a couple secrets. I'm going to tell you all my secrets right now. Okay, you have to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, every night, no matter how early you wake up. There's no substitute for really good sleep. I take a shitload of vitamins. I walk a lot. I have really awesome hobbies. I have an antique coin collection. I study archaeology and the Silk Road. So read a lot. I build a lot of shit. I'm very handy. I fix everything around my house. I take on projects. I built a bamboo hut this summer with my kids. I built a lot of complicated Lego sets. Do stuff that, when you're doing something with your hands, you can be thinking of new ideas, but just eating really well, exercising, getting sleep, those things everybody knows about, but your brain can change and grow. So you have to keep yourself, mentally challenged and mentally stimulated. And that's what gives you the energy to go on. Drink a lot of coffee. I drink a lot of coffee. That's really the key to my success. When I don't drink coffee, people really notice. And then lastly, to reiterate something that Malia said, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you need a super You need a partner that's either super supportive and patient or such a narcissist that they're so wrapped up in their own shit that they don't even know they've got such a great job and their own vision and their own ambition. They're not even noticing what you're doing. That's the kind of partner I have, and I'm so happy. You cannot succeed if you don't have.
I do.
Yeah. You need like a super.
I think I married a narcissist too, Shazia.
Yeah. I mean, I love my husband, but let's just tell it like it is, right? You got to marry somebody that's so wrapped up in their own shit that they're not even trying to stop you from doing your shit. That's all I have to say.
So before I hand it, this is again, it's incredible, right? And I so appreciate your transparency, your truth, your authentic advice. It's wonderful. So before I turn it over back to Jackie to close this session, any last word, anything you would like us to know? Malia, please. Yeah.
I wanted to add something. This whole thing about work-life balance, it is okay to not be in balance at times. We sometimes sweat so much that, we're not having work-life balance. But what I have seen is I have gone through phases, years when I'm the, yoga, health, fitness, everything, I'm so into it. But there has been times when I'm in a rut. And I think it happens to everybody. I'm not doing my yoga, I'm not doing anything. I'm just, worried about work. And I think it's important to understand that it can happen. And the other thing is, you can't be the best at everything. You can't be the best entrepreneur. You can't be the best mom. You can't be the best wife. You can't be the best daughter. You can't. And it's okay to accept that. We can't, if we want to be the best at everything, we will not be able to do anything. And we need to understand that you have to sacrifice some of your work to spend time with your family. You have to sacrifice, feeding your 4-year-old kid all the time, letting the nanny do that to be able to focus on your work. And that's okay. So we are also weak. It's okay to be sometimes weak and not to be strong all the time. And the other thing is, social media is fake. It just makes everybody's life so good.
Total time sucks. And also, I agree. I forgot to mention the most important part. You need help. It's just not possible. Same way you delegate stuff at work. I have a live-in au pair. Without her, I couldn't do anything. So just recognize that you're only one person. You can only do so much stuff. So if you want to spend time doing what you need to do, then you need to be able to find people that can support all this shit that you don't want to do. And there's no shame in that. You don't need to. Who wants to be superwoman? I just want to indulge myself and do the stuff that I care about. My work, my kids, my crazy projects, and supporting my husband's stand-up career. He's going to transition from a doctor to a stand-up comedian is what he tells me.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you all again. I cannot express my gratitude and the sheer joy in learning from all of you this morning. And, once we are out of this pandemic, I hope we can all gather in person and you will come back and visit Smith. So with that, I'll turn it back to Jackie.
Oh, thank you so much. You're all so inspiring. Thank you for sharing with us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you are in the world. I hope that listening to these very inspiring stories from these amazing Smithies has brings you some drive and comfort and understanding that these are real women doing pretty amazing things and also managing lives. I think we can all agree that the world is a better place thanks to the creativity, vision, and determination of these amazing women. Thank you to Lindsay and Amy and Ashley for managing all the logistics this morning. We will have a follow-up with you all, and we'll send out a bunch of amazing links about the work of the panelists, and they've all got resumes and TED Talks and all sorts of other stuff that we'll send to you. Please stay in touch with each other, stay in touch with Smith. Make sure that your alumni records are up to date. And if you have any questions about how to do that, please let us know. Also, let us know what topics you'd be interested in learning about in the future, or maybe you want to be part of a future webinar. Let us know. And most of all, wherever you are, thank you and stay safe and have a great day, great evening. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes.
I'm gonna take a nap.